A third pass-through myth is that imposing costs on a monopoly producer does comparatively little harm to consumers because the producer has enough margin to absorb costs without raising prices. Chapter 28 revisits this claim in the context of corporate income taxation. For now, we point out the incentives for even monopolized markets to communicate marginal costs to consumers through either prices or non-price mechanisms. Suppose that marginal cost varies with the seasons or across regions. As compared to uniform pricing, the monopolist earns greater profit by encouraging consumers to make their purchases when and where marginal costs are lower. This may be achieved by setting a price structure to follow the structure of marginal costs, as we show in the next chapter in the context of regional cigarette pricing. The overall level of prices may be higher than it would be with more competition, but the price differentials closely resemble a competitive outcome. In other markets, such as prescription drugs, non-price mechanisms such as advertising and per-customer purchase limits help shift purchases to low marginal cost settings. Chapter 23 shows how contracting may evolve to encourage responses to cost changes that look competitive. See also Chapter 24. The Lerner Index is a canonical monopoly pricing model. Although we de-emphasize it in the course due to its neglect of gains from trade, Chapter 23, it also makes the point that pass-through can be significant in a monopolized market. The model assumes that the monopolist faces a fixed demand curve without non-price allocation tools to shift the curve or move consumers off it. Furthermore, all sales must be made at the same price. In this setting, the optimal quantity equates marginal cost to marginal revenue. Because the demand curve slopes down, the optimal price therefore exceeds marginal cost by a factor of the ratio of epsilon d to 1 plus epsilon d. That ratio exceeds 1. If the price elasticity of demand were constant in the relevant range and the marginal cost curve were horizontal, then this factor would also be the pass-through rate. Monopolists may pass through more than competitive markets do. At the same time, the monopolist loses profits from the cost shock, just less loss than would occur from passing through one-for-one. If the demand curve gets more price elastic at higher prices, then a monopolist may pass through less than one-for-one. We leave it to readers to verify that the pass-through rate is 1/2 with a linear demand curve. The Lerner Index is also an oligopoly model, sometimes known as differentiated Bertrand pricing. Let L denote a firm's output and K an index of its competitor's output. Chapter 18 extends this framework to look at K's components individually. Each firm's optimal price exceeds its marginal cost by the Lerner Index factor. For the L supplier, that is the ratio of epsilon sub LL to 1 plus epsilon sub LL, where epsilon sub LL is less than 0 and is the elasticity of that firm's demand with respect to its own price, holding R constant. Marshall's laws complement the Lerner Index approach to oligopoly by giving some insights into each firm's demand curve. L and K are imperfect substitutes in consumer preferences according to the quantity index F of L and K. The mix of production still minimizes W times L plus R times K with respect to the input quantities. Downstream prices are still P equals the quantity W times L plus R times K all over Y. The lack of competition shows up as factor prices W and R that exceed the industry's marginal factor costs. Let's suppose that L and K are substitutes. Here we mean substitutes in the sense that the substitution effect exceeds the scale effect. In the neighborhood of the differentiated Bertrand equilibrium, a reduction in W has no first-order effect on the L supplier's profits. Industry profits are reduced, though. The price W is too low from the point of view of competitors, namely the K supplier. R is too low from the point of view of the L supplier. In a symmetric equilibrium, L's expenditure share is 1 over N, where N is the number of producers. Marshall's laws state that the magnitude of the own price elasticity of the demand for L is a share-weighted average of the magnitude of the price elasticity of market demand and the elasticity of substitution among the producers. In the monopoly case, where N equals 1, the firm and market level demand curves coincide, as expected. As the number of firms becomes large, epsilon sub L approaches minus sigma. Interestingly, just one competitor, where n equals 2, takes the firm-level demand curve halfway to what it would be with many firms, unless sigma is different with two firms than it would be with many. Two competitors take it two-thirds of the way, that is, twice as far from monopoly as from many firms. A richer model might allow sigma to grow with the number of entrants, or use competition metrics different from epsilon sub L, but Marshall's law gives the spirit of why two firms might be enough to consider an industry to be competitive, a rule of thumb sometimes attributed to George Stigler.